One of the biggest debates on the internet is always who is the GOAT, who is the greatest of all time in various sports and other endeavors. One of the hardest things for me as an aging sports fan is to watch my GOATs be replaced by younger GOATs.
I mean, hell, you and I argued for decades over who the greater fighter was between Hagler and Sugar Ray. I mean, to try to argue who the greatest ever, even in one sport, like the most annoying argument in the history of the world is LeBron versus Jordan.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
it's never like it was really fucking close. They were both fantastic. One, I think the LeBron was this, that, or the other thing. It was always like Jordan sucked at this. It's
Right.
like, come on, guys. It's like,
Yeah, that's when to listen to my boys talk about the NBA, like Jordan era NBA, and they just shit talk that NBA. Like those guys couldn't stick with Steph Curry or LeBron,
right.
and I'm like, all right, that's fine. It is different. It is there are a lot of increases I think in strength and speed and conditioning and what have you, but like you said, it's always got to be no. Those guys blow. They wouldn't even have made the team.
I
Like, all right, I'm pretty sure Jordan would have made the
know.
team.
He would have been first off the bench. So,
So I think an interesting conversation to have with anybody, at least any sports fan, is what goats, what future Hall of
yeah.
Famers have you seen play live in any sport? Because usually, even moderate sports fans will be able to say, "Well, I saw so and so. I saw Jordan at the United Center, or I saw this or that." So most people, unless you absolutely hate sports and have just never gone to a live sporting event, have some answer to that question. My guess is that in your case, that probably includes a lot of baseball players.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's my biggest. And I think we may have talked about this back when we were in grade school and maybe even into high school. If you got straight A's, you got free tickets to a baseball game, a Reds game, which was kind of cool. So I'd at least go then, and we'd go to games two, three times a year, starting from a relatively early age. So when I was 10, that was 1976, which was the glory days of the Reds. So 75 and 76, they won the World Series. Those teams included Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench. Those are all well, Pete Rose isn't a Hall of Famer yet, but Trump will make him a Hall of Famer. Don't worry.
yeah, it looks like he's going to.
And then other players, Ken Griffey, the dad, George Foster. Just I knew that team by heart, and I mean those were I felt like I mean that was my favorite time of baseball, just because I was a kid. I collected cards. I worshiped those guys, and a couple of them. Johnny Bench is still seen as probably the greatest catcher ever. Definitely one of the best ever. Joe Morgan was a fantastic second baseman. That was hero worship. We love those guys. And
Sure.
I mean, the thing was, I mean, back then you'd have guys who were not so great guys. You just didn't hear about it as much as you do
Right.
these days.
Right.
So that whole idea of worshiping a hero was a little more innocent back then. It started, I mean, it very quickly picked up. But yeah, baseball was definitely my go-to and where I probably saw the most Hall of Fame level players. The other problem is I grew up in Cincinnati, and Bengals,
Right.
despite their current run, they only have three guys in the Hall of Fame, and one of them is Terrell Owens, who played for them for like 15 minutes. So, I mean, technically, they are listed. It's acknowledged that he was a Bengal, but no one thinks of him as a Bengal.
Right.
The only, I mean, Anthony Munoz was possibly the greatest left tackle. I think he's a left tackle, definitely a tackle.
Yeah.
Uh, one of the greatest linemen ever. He played for the Bengals, and I'm sure I saw him. Wasn't a whole lot of greatness in those Bengal teams, so I didn't get much chance as you probably did if you went to Steelers games and whatnot.
Yeah, that's what's funny. So, I grew up in the Pittsburgh area in that same period of time, and actually, I guess shifting a little later in time, like late '70s and early '80s. So the Steelers were winning Super Bowls. The Pirates were winning. There was a time there where those two teams were that was the City of Champions period in Pittsburgh, and the Penguins weren't particularly good back then, but I do think that I went to a Pirates game in that period of time when I was like in seventh, maybe eighth, ninth grade, probably a little bit earlier than that now that I think about it. But I'm pretty sure I know I went to a couple Pirates games. I also know that I didn't like baseball then any more than I like it now. So I don't have any real recollection of it, but I must have seen Willie Stargell play. I must have seen Dave Parker play because they were, winning World Series or at least threatening. For years there was a period of time where they were always contenders, and those were the Hall of Famers that were on that team. But I have to admit, don't really remember or don't treasure the memories of those games. And what's weird is never saw the Steel Curtain Steelers play live.
Hmm.
Lived,
Hmm.
within an hour of Pittsburgh that whole time, but we just never went to games for, I'm not sure what the reason was. I think my parents went, but didn't take us. Probably tickets were too expensive, that kind of thing. So I saw those teams on TV the same way everybody else saw those teams. Since then, I've seen, I don't see the Steelers in Pittsburgh, but I see them, in Indianapolis, or I see them when they play in Kansas City or what have you. So I've seen a couple, I've seen some decent teams, but I don't know that there are a whole lot of Hall of Famers. I've seen Hines Ward play, and I want him in the Hall of Fame. I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, but he's not there. And he's certainly not, he's not a GOAT. He's not the greatest receiver of all time by any means. The only GOAT from pro football, I would say, that I've had a chance to see play is TJ Watt, because I expect that
Yeah.
he is a Hall of Famer and may go down, depending on how he plays the next couple seasons, as one of the best ever at his position.
Did
Um,
you see Palomalu?
I think I saw him. That's one. Again, when I was living here in the Midwest, mainly in St. Louis or Columbia, Missouri, there there were. I went to a few Steelers at Chiefs games, including one game where I just moved up here to the Chicago area, and I literally played planes, trains, and automobiles to get to the Steelers Chiefs game. I think Palomalu played in that game. I think it was before he retired, and I think I saw him, but for whatever reason, probably drinking. I don't really remember specifically whether he was there, but I think I saw him play at Arrowhead. I've seen TJ play a couple times in the last. Weirdly, the Steelers have played Colts at Indianapolis like 2 out of the last 3 years, and I've gone to both those games, so I got a chance to see him play. As far as NFL is concerned, I also once saw Mean Joe Green on the field, but I think it was like 15 years after he retired. He was an assistant coach for the Steelers. It was a preseason game, and he was giving, actually, I think he was giving, what was his name? Eric Green. They had a tight end named Eric Green who won their Rookie of the Year award that year or the prior year. So I saw Mean Joe present him that award, which was kind of cool, but I never got to see him play. So I've actually seen, I think I've seen more Hall of Famers or potentially future Hall of Famers in sports other than football and baseball. Because of when I live here in the Chicago area, I got to see the Jordan Bulls play. I saw at least one finals game involving the Bulls. I got to see the Hawks sew up the Stanley Cup championship at home one of the years they won. So I've gotten to see some really, really good players that were out of Chicago. I did see Jordan. I've seen Pippen play. I saw Rodman. Like, I saw that team play, which is awesome. Those guys are already in the Hall of Fame, and Jordan arguably is the greatest basketball player of all time. I've gone to a few Bears games, usually when they play the Steelers, but I've also seen, again, through my wife primarily. She'll get tickets, so I've seen some regular season and some preseason games. I saw Urlacher play. He's in the Hall of Fame, in the NFL Hall of Fame. On the hockey side, though, I saw Chelios play. I'm also a Penguins fan, and particularly was a Penguins fan, maybe more back then than now. But I saw Lemieux play. I saw Gretzky play against the Penguins when the Penguins sucked at the old Igloo in Pittsburgh. So I saw him and Messier play. But it was really more for me, for whatever reason, basketball and hockey. I've seen more of the all-time greats than I have in the other, the two major sports, basketball, or excuse me, football and baseball.
And you and I got a chance to go to Blues games when we worked at the bar in St. Louis. I was not a huge hockey fan, but recognized greatness. I mean, Brett Hull, I think we got to see.
Yeah, you're
Um,
right.
he was pretty damn good.
Hmm.
They weren't great Blues teams at the time. I think they had a couple of good seasons, but they were never, one of the best in the league at the time. And then I lived in DC for a while, and I split season tickets with another couple. Uh, so I got to see Ovechkin
Oh,
pretty much from his rookie year, and I'm pretty sure it would have been close, but I think I saw Lemieux. They overlapped only a little bit, and certain that I saw Crosby. I think Crosby was I mean, he's a certain Hall of Famer too.
yeah, he certainly is. I never got to see him play live. Never did.
And I'm
Um,
sure I saw other great hockey players. I just probably wasn't as in tune to it because uh, I love hockey, never played, so it's always been a little difficult for me to follow the other than what people say about athletes.
yeah, I was always surprised when back then when you had those tickets. I always thought those aren't the season tickets I would expect Chris to have.
They may have been the most affordable because
Yeah,
DC
exactly.
because DC didn't have a baseball team at the time. And football tickets were freaking expensive in
Yeah.
DC because I think they're like a lot of those towns where it's a prize to get off the waiting list to get season tickets. So
Yeah, I'm sure that's why I've seen more basketball and hockey Hall of Famers is because those are, a single game ticket isn't going to break the bank like it would be to
right.
try to go see the Bears or go to a Steelers game or at home or that kind of thing. We had for a wedding anniversary way early in my marriage, probably the fifth or sixth year we were married. My wife gave me a block. It wasn't a full season ticket package for the Bulls, but it was like a package of I don't know a dozen games, and that was an opportunity to see some of those great players play, and that I can't remember the timing of it all. I know at some point I've been to a Bulls game and I did see LeBron play. I saw them play, and he was a Laker, so it's more recent than back then. But I know I saw him, and again, there are plenty of people who would argue he's the greatest basketball player of all time. So I guess that counts. I don't think I ever saw Kobe play. Really wish I had. And there, as you said, there might be a handful of basketball players that are in the Hall of Fame that I actually saw that I'm either forgetting or just didn't didn't realize they were that good in the first place.
Yeah, and having worked at UNC and now Duke, I mean, I've had the luxury of going to at least one basketball game a year. Best one I saw, and maybe the best player, well, it's yet to be determined, was Cooper Flag. I saw them in the regular season game against Auburn, which was a battle. And what was interesting is, and again, I'm not a huge basketball fan. I think I've maybe gone to one NBA game in my life, but even I could notice like Cooper Flag at times sort of looked like a baby deer, trying to get his legs under him. I mean, he was still
Right,
a little
right.
awkward. By the end of the season, he'd sort of pulled it together. But I talked to someone over in athletics, and they're like, "That's why it's so freaking amazing. Is the dude is still growing, still growing into his
Yes.
body, and he's already the best player in college basketball." And it was questionable because at the time, I forget the guy from Auburn, the two of them were neck and neck for player of the year. Cooper ended up winning. So we'll see what he does in the NBA. But in hindsight, that'll be a game that I remember just because I think he's going to be something special.
It that makes me think of, you can break this kind of greatest of all time discussion down into things like pro basketball versus college basketball. Christian Laettner probably in the running for greatest college player of all time, certainly not a greatest NBA player of all time.
No.
Cooper Flag could be that guy who won't qualify for greatest college player of all time, mainly because he only played 1 year and they didn't win it all. No matter how good he was, certainly first team All American that year, but hard to put him on that list based upon longevity. And then if, God forbid, he had an injury or just didn't pan out, he might not be in the discussion for the NBA either.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be able to rock himself to sleep in the piles of money that he has. I'm sure it won't bother him too much. But my guess is most players. I don't know. Michael Jordan wants to be known as the greatest of all time. LeBron probably wants to be known. I mean, those are the kind of things that drive them. But on a day-to-day basis, I can't imagine they think very much about that kind of shit.
Any closing comments on the opening segment, setting the framework for the rest of the show?
I think I've been lucky to see quite a few goats, or at least future Hall of Famers, and it's funny when you look back, you're like, oh yeah, I saw that guy play. Or that's why when I was thinking about the Pirates, I thought I'm sure I saw Willie Stargell play because I know my dad would, we would go up maybe twice a year to see Pirates games because it was so close to where we live, and that was when they were dominant. And like I said, I didn't recognize it at the time or even care that much, but it is. I think I've been pretty lucky in that regard.
And I came very close, but it's Pittsburgh, so I couldn't do it, to choosing We Are Family as my playlist pick
Yeah,
because that is so associated with that eight, late 70s, early 80s teams. I think those, or was it later than
yeah.
that? Maybe it was. Was it the
I think it was
90s team?
late '70s mainly.
Late.
Yeah.
Okay. But that, I can't think, there's not many songs you can think of or hear and then immediately think of a sports team or at least an era with the team. And We Are Family is definitely associated with the Pirates.
Dude, if you lived in Wheeling, West Virginia in like 1978, 79, whatever it was on every third song on the radio. It seemed like you were listening to We Are Family. It was everywhere. So we decided to do a draft. We are going to draft our choices for greatest of all time in their sport. So we're going to cover multiple sports. I think they're all professional sports. At least that's the way I approached it. I didn't really think in terms of like greatest college football player of all time, although again, probably different than the NFL. But I went pro anyway. I'll be very curious as to whether we have any overlap in this. I'm going to guess maybe at least at the top few picks, but probably not as we go through. But we need to flip a coin. I am the 3SI coin flipper. I have a badge.
Heads. Heads.
It is tails.
Damn it. I always go tails and today I go heads.
Yeah, exactly. Although I was editing an episode and heard you go heads and win. So it's
All
possible.
right.
It is possible. So we're going to do a serpentine draft. I have to decide whether I want the very first pick or whether I want the second and third picks, and we will then serpentine our way through our top 10 in this greatest of all time athlete draft. I am taking the very first pick because we haven't even talked about him, but I have a feeling you might
Have you
go boxing.
God damn it, you fucker.
And although still not sure, but I'm going Ali. I'm going Muhammad Ali as the
That was it.
greatest. Was it? I'm glad I picked the first pick then, because I would be pissed if I didn't get Muhammad Ali. He is just, or was, he's dead, by the way, in case anybody was wondering. He was the greatest of all time. I mean, that's why the phrase was coined, right? I mean, that all came from him, and eventually people decided to pare it down and make it GOAT. But Ali spent a lot of time telling people he was the greatest of all time, and he also spent a lot of time backing it up. And it is, I think, it had to be the very first pick of this draft.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I don't
All
know if I ever
right.
told you I think it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we were coming back from dropping my daughter off in Philadelphia, and we drove north into northeast Pennsylvania, and we went to Deer Lake, which is Ali or was Ali's training camp for most of his big
Oh,
fights.
cool.
And it's now kind of a museum. So you can go through and all the cabins are there, and there's one big cabin that has the ring in it. I've got a picture of me inside the ring, sitting on the stool with my arms on the ropes. You can go and you can go to the cabin where he slept by himself when he was getting close to a fight. If you remember, I don't know if you know anything about that training camp, but he has these boulders throughout the camp, and he had people paint the names of great boxers all around the camp, and they've kept them up. And in fact, they've improved on it in the last few years. A big fan, bought the whole farm area. It was all like on the side of a hill, but it's worth going to, by the way. But it definitely reinforced my feeling of my idolization, I guess, of Muhammad Ali. I'm just a giant fan of his.
Yeah, that would easily would have been my first choice, as will be noted through some of my other choices in the episode. All right. I don't like basketball, but I don't know how I don't take Jordan. Um,
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the Jordan LeBron thing. I just think that Jordan defined an era. It was the last time I enjoyed watching basketball. I still want to watch the playoffs, but I haven't watched since then. I just don't enjoy it anymore. And it was something special when he was playing. Like watching him against either the Pistons or the
Yeah.
Knicks. Those were battles. They were fun. He always ended up, winning out. And I don't know, we didn't talk about what constitutes greatness, whether it's individual achievement or team achievement, but he certainly had both. So
Yeah, I think that's the best way to sum it up, and why maybe he could have been the first pick for me is because not only did he achieve everything from an individual perspective you possibly could, but he won back to back to back championships twice, and during that period of time, other than the gap in between, there was no one who could really touch him, and he changed his game. As he got older, he changed things so that he could remain on top, and he just had that swagger on top of everything else. So that's definitely a great number two pick, because I think arguably it's a number one pick.
yeah, and this one, I'm gonna go with another sport that I said I'm not a huge fan of, but another player that made me watch, Wayne Gretzky. Um, he,
You fucker.
I mean, he was so clearly head and shoulders above everyone else when he was playing. Would carry those teams on his back, and I mean, who wants to watch he was with the Islanders forever, right? I mean, and
No, he played for the Rangers.
oh no, the who's the
So he started out with the Oilers.
Oilers, Edmonton Oilers.
Right.
I
Right.
had the colors. Colors are similar. Obviously,
Yeah,
you can
actually,
edit
you're
that
right.
out.
They were.
So the Oilers won, I think, like multiple times in a year. They were definitely a dynasty when he was there, and then he went on. I know he played for the LA Kings as well.
Yeah, played for the
Um,
Rangers, played for the
Rangers.
Kings. Feel like there was one other team for a short period of time, but his
But it was the Oilers
yeah,
that I was really paying attention. Obviously, not that much attention because I said the Islanders, but um, he made me watch hockey. I still probably didn't even appreciate his greatness just because I don't think I appreciate the subtleties of hockey. But he was easily the GOAT at that time, and there's
yeah.
certainly been great players after him. But you don't hear as much of a debate about that, like the LeBron. I think it's I don't know.
We just picked the top three on my list, and those three for me are practically interchangeable. And Gretzky, if the argument is individual accolades and team championships, it might be a better argument for him than it was even for Jordan, which is hard to say. But I agree. I think he's the greatest hockey player of all time. There are great players that have followed him, but I also agree there's not as much of a debate. He was something to watch, and it was a pretty exciting time in hockey when he came about. Okay, so I get the next two picks. This is where I think it gets. I don't think we'll necessarily agree, although we did pick the top three in exactly the order I had them on my list. And I have a couple where I'm going to end up having to decide if I pick them only because I'm not a fan of the sports, that kind of thing. But for me personally, and this is more of a personal pick maybe than backed by all the stats and one loss records. But my fourth pick is going to be Walter Payton.
Oh, I
I
like that.
I think I think he's the greatest running back of all time, but I know there are lots of arguments both before and after Peyton that there were players that were better than him. Certainly, Jim Brown has got to be in the discussion because he may be, even though he had a short career, he may be the best ever. But Walter Payton was the most exciting. He was he did get to win a Super Bowl, but his efforts as a great player on a relatively poor team for years, it was just phenomenal. The things he was able to accomplish when he was playing on teams that didn't necessarily match up to his talent, his work ethic, or his drive. There is just so impressive. And most importantly, he was when I was growing up as a kid. Even though I was a Steelers fan, I was a Walter Payton fan. I had posters of him in my room. He was the guy I loved to watch play. So he's my fourth pick. Walter Payton from the Chicago Bears back in the 80s.
Not a pick that I expected, but an awesome pick nonetheless. I
Very
I,
personal, like
I
I said,
yeah,
but
and that may make me rethink some of my choices here. But he was fun to watch. I mean, he was. That's the thing is there's greatness, and then there's greatness that you can just see by taking just one look at. I mean,
yeah.
his abilities, he did things that other people couldn't do, and I think that's what goat talk is all about.
Yeah, and that's just it. Is I think since him, of course, there are people that have broken his rushing records. Emmett Smith has he out rushed Peyton. He probably outscored him too. I'm sure. I don't really know Smith's stats, but he certainly moved ahead of him on the list of rushing leaders. But I thought he was boring to watch,
Yeah.
and he didn't dominate games the way or in the same way that Peyton did. Barry Sanders is arguably one of those people as well, and he was fucking amazing to watch. And before Peyton, hell, Gale Sayers, who was a Bear, again had a very short career, and you can argue those guys were, greater than him as running backs, but I don't think anybody had the full package. And I just, as you said, I just love to watch him run. So that's my number 4 pick. I am just trying to figure out where to go here. I decided I'm going track and field,
Hmm.
and I have like 3 people on my list that are track and field, or basically sprinters. But I think I have to go with Usain Bolt as my number 5 pick. No one dominated track and field, uh, I think, ever the way he did, and most of his records still stand, or many of them do anyway. But he was again, he was one of those guys that drew eyes to the sport, and when the Olympics came around, that's what they were interested in, was Usain Bolt, and he came through basically every time. So although he edges out, for me, at least so far in the draft, he edges out guys like Jesse Owens, who, from a political perspective, maybe is even greater, and had more impact on the world at large. But nobody could run like Usain Bolt. He's like crazy tall, 6'5" or something like that, and he would just destroy people on the track. And I decided to go with him for my number 5 pick.
I like it. All right. I've already mentioned this guy, but I'm gonna go with Johnny Bench. I think he's first off, he played for the Reds. Secondly, I was a catcher when I was a kid and playing into high school and a little bit into college. And he was the one that I idolized. I kept a baseball card of his in my hat whenever I played, right in front. It's a very, very personal pick. On a side note, there was a restaurant, Johnny Bench's Home Plate, that was always a special treat to go to. It wasn't super fancy, but it was in between like a big boy restaurant and a fancy place. It was kind of a special. We weren't overly wealthy, so it was always special. They have all this stuff on the walls. It was just really
Yeah.
cool. So he was always my favorite.
Was he ever there when you went as a kid?
I think I saw him someplace. I didn't talk to him or anything, but I remember seeing him definitely past his playing days. I saw Pete Rose in a booth in Vegas signing autographs. It's shocking. So, and then this one's on all the lists that I'm reading. I'm not seeing enough women. I'm going to go with Serena Williams. Um,
Ah,
I feel like for a period, she was close to unbeatable, and she was fun to watch. I mean, there were certainly others that competed with her, and she was just a pure athlete and a pure competitor. And there's times I get into tennis. I remember it used to be special when I was a kid to get up and watch Breakfast at Wilmington, and that was usually the men's final. But she was one that made me want to watch the women's side just as much. And um,
did you did you really watch Breakfast at Wilmington, or
Wimbledon.
because why would
Living
you
in
go there?
Living in North Carolina, I think I just let it slip. Breakfast at Wimbledon. My bad.
Ah, yeah,
It's
she's
funny.
on most of the lists, right? If you
Yeah.
Google greatest athletes of all time, or greatest professional athletes, or whatever it might be, she shows up early on a lot of lists, and I get it. I certainly understand it. I just, as someone who just doesn't watch much tennis, I mean, you got to recognize how great she was, and her sister, as far as that's concerned. But
Yep. Exactly.
and she seems like a good person and all the all those other things. I think she deserves to be on the list. My number 8 pick again gets difficult for me, but I'm going to go in honor of my boys. I'm going soccer, and I'm picking Lionel Messi.
Nice.
It's just hard to argue against him as the greatest. There's he and Ronaldo. Has been the big argument. Who's the greatest player? At the time, that argument's fallen off now because Ronaldo's playing in Saudi somewhere and Messi's playing in America. But when they were in their prime, they were just duking it out for the Ballon d'Or, and I think it's just hard to argue. Lionel Messi is that Wayne Gretzky type of player. He just every time there was a challenge, he rose up to it. He could do things and make people look foolish out on the field. He's won it all at this point. He's done everything, including a World Cup, which took him a long time to get to. But I think it'd be hard for anyone to argue against him as one of the GOATs. And he is number 8 on the draft. And number 9, I'm going with a sport that I do not like. I do not play. I do not watch. But I feel like this guy, much as Ali is kind of inarguably the greatest boxer of all time in my mind, Tiger Woods is the greatest golfer of all time. So when I look at our list and I look at my choices in particular, it's, I pick everybody that's within my lifetime, right? I didn't reach back, although I had some people on the list that almost made it. And I didn't name anybody that's really, right now dominating things. So it just goes to show you that's how these arguments, I think, always end up going. But I'm picking Messi for number 8 and Tiger Woods for number 9, which leaves the final draft spot to you.
All kinds of choices here.
Yeah.
So I could cover my bets and take LeBron. Have your own internal debate, but I don't like basketball, so I'm not doing that.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going to go with a personal one that's going to surprise you a little bit. When I was growing up, I was a huge Reds fan, but the player who I admired the most and probably consider them the top of my, Mount Rushmore of heroes was Roberto Clemente from the Pirates. Tragic end to his life and to his career. I read books about him when I was a kid. If he had been able to continue to play, I mean, he still had, some of the hallmark numbers like 3,000 hits and everything else. And just watching the way he played the field, I mean, he was something special to watch. And he was always one of my favorites. And if it's choice between a sport that I don't watch and a sport that I love and a player that I love, I'm going with Clemente.
Well, I think we will finally get a compliment from Joe on our selections for an episode. Although he may not be happy at the ranking because it took 10 picks to get to him. But I am surprised. Didn't expect that one. And again, pretty much within our sports watching period of time, you and I. But I was not paying attention to the Pirates at all when he was playing, before he died. I really didn't become aware of, Pirates and Pirates players until that We Are Family phase we were talking about earlier, which was late 70s. But from everything I know, that's a good choice. I would not have put 2 baseball players on our list, but I only get to draft half the teams, so I get it. Right. I actually had a bunch of basketball players left.
That's what I was going to say. There's a whole bunch of people left. I mean, true greats like Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, from eras that we didn't watch. You got the Wilt Chamberlain. Sorry. I mean, there's some football. I mean, there's some like true great multi-sport athletes like Jim Thorpe's of the world who I thought about taking. I know Michael Phelps showed up. Babe Didrikson. Yes, I saw her on that one.
I once wrote a book report on Babe Didrikson when I was in grade school, so I know she was a great multi-sport athlete.
She was.
I had Michael Phelps. I didn't have him I had him on my list with a question mark because I don't care about swimming at all. Right. But he does make everybody's list, and for good reason. The guy's, he won. I believe the count was 14,000 gold medals. I can't remember the exact count, but
it's 14,000. It's 14,001.
Ah,
Okay.
got it, got it. Well, and that's like what's her name, the gymnast.
Simone Biles. Simone Biles.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
So I mean, she deserves to be on the list, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned Jesse Owens, like one of probably my favorite basketball player of all time. Setting aside who's the greatest, which that debate is always, at least for now, going to be LeBron and Jordan. But my absolute favorite basketball player of all time is Magic Johnson,
Yep.
and he might be the greatest point guard of all time. Basketball has changed so much that most people, when they play a position, they're basically playing all five positions on the floor, or capable of playing them all. But Magic was one of those guys who was huge, but the way he passed the ball, the way he moved the ball, the way he took over games and led teams, like I think I was very close to putting him or picking him instead of Tiger, because I like basketball way more than golf. But to me, Tiger is just so far and away dominant, and was so dominant during this period. He didn't have anybody he was really competing with at that point.
Right.
Whereas Magic is always kind of synonymous with Larry Bird, so I decided not to choose either one of them. Although they're kind of on my secondary list. Those are great players, and I think I think I mentioned Jesse Owens. I think I might have mentioned Jim Brown. Probably they deserve. I mean, they definitely deserve to be on a list of greatest goats. But we only have 10 to pick, and I think had a pretty good list.
I think so too. All right. That takes us to a new segment in the last couple seasons, Loft of Wisdom.
You better open up your eyes, babe, because fools do get wise.
Yeah, Loft of Wisdom is our digital replica of the lofts we used to sleep in when we were juniors in college. We had these wooden lofts that we would write all kinds of quotes on in Sharpie, usually in a drunken state, but sometimes in a state of just awe of some line we heard on a TV show or a lyric of a song or whatever. Will regret to our dying day not taking pictures of the Loft of Wisdom. So we're doing our best to recreate it here digitally. And every episode this season, we are each providing a quote that we think deserves to be heard or reheard and deserves to be placed up on our website. So, what and who do you have a quote from for this one?
So this is my first reference to the pick that you stole from me. Muhammad Ali, one of the greatest boxers of all time, one of the most courageous men, I would argue, for what he stood up for, and also one of the funnest people to listen to before fights, talking shit, the float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, talking about being the greatest of all time. But one of his quotes was something along the lines of, "It ain't bragging if it's true." And Corey Brannon wrote a song entitled Muhammad Ali, and it starts out with the phrases. Good job, Chris. It ain't bragging if it's true. It ain't bragging if it's true. It ain't bragging if it's true, said Muhammad Ali and me. So then Corey Brannon goes on to talk about what a great lover he is. I think essentially it's a funny song.
That's great.
It's a really great song. References Ali, and Tom freaking stole him from me in the draft.
Yeah, it had to be done. It just had to be done. Well, coincidentally, my pick for the Loft is an Ali quote straight from the man himself. He once said, "If you even dream of beating me, you better wake up and apologize." I love that quote. My understanding was he said it to George Foreman before the Rumble in the Jungle, but it turns out that that was somewhat of a prepared statement, which doesn't surprise me because Ali used to repeat those kind of things all the time. But there's actually a televised interview he did in 1972, and I found it on YouTube. So the Rumble in the Jungle was what, 74 maybe, I think. He was interviewed by a British journalist in 1972 and made that same statement. He was talking about somebody else at the time, but said if he even dreams of beating me, he better wake up and apologize. But I do think he's the one who originated it, because I've seen it in movies now. You see it all the time. But I think that's just the funny. It just shows his wit. It just shows how funny and just ready at any time with a quip he was. Like you said, I mean he's an idol of mine. And it's not really because he could beat the hell out of people, but because of the stance he took politically speaking and the way he treated people in general, not necessarily wives or women, but everybody else. And he was a great man. And I think that's one of the funniest quotes I've ever heard as a pre-fight quote. Is if you even dream of beating me, you better wake up and apologize. So those two quotes will go on the Loft of Wisdom. You can find that at thirdsonginpodcast.com.
Doesn't go up, but when I looked that quote up, there's some more quotes that Ali had before the fight. One of the ones that made me laugh. I've seen George Foreman shadowboxing, and the shadow won.
Yeah. He's the best, man. If you just, if you YouTube his television interviews, like they just, what Dick Cavett, or, I mean, they love to have him on because they just had to wind him up and just get out of the way because he would have something to say. And lots of times it was very introspective stuff too. It wasn't just making jokes or, reciting poems. He was very, very tuned into what was going on, but always interesting to hear him interview, always.
All right. That's our Loft of Wisdom, which then brings us to Post Facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
Yeah, so Post Facto is our opportunity to either correct mistakes or go back to topics or things we talked about in earlier episodes. I'm not sure either of us has a mistake to fess up to this week, but I do know you have a Post Facto.
I do. You had told me on the last episode that when I finished the book Sellout, which is about the hardcore and post-punk, pop-punk bands and their debate over whether to sign with a major label, that I had to give an update. Well, I finished it last night. I really enjoyed it. I think the guy's a good songwriter. The guy's a good writer. Highlighted some bands that I'd never heard of, Against Me, which I didn't realize is one of the first bands where the lead singer came out as trans.
Oh.
She was born as a male and performed as a male. It was interesting. Early in the career, must have performed before she came or announced that she was trans. And there were certain times in the book that they had to, where you bracket words that weren't said to give it context, where they put she in there, which tells me the time they were referring. So it was interesting. There was a nice mix of bands like that were pioneers. Others were like a band called the Donnas, which were an all-female band. And what I thought was cool about them, I don't think I've said this yet. So they started like when they were early teens, and there was a lot of older men at their shows, which is kind of gross. And so they dealt with that sort of attention their whole career. I mean, they were good-looking women. They were, whatever it does. They could have been any women. But the point is that they were sort of put off by all that crap of thinking that they're going to sleep with these guys. And so they just go on their tour bus, play cards, watch movies, and they were often called stuck up or pretentious because they weren't out partying like all the other bands were. So it's just highlighting some of the challenges that, non-males can have in any industry. And I thought the writer did a good job without preaching too much of highlighting those challenges. And it runs a spectrum, like I said, from Green Day, that everyone's heard of, to Jimmy Eat World, a lot of stuff that they know, Rise Against, which is a band that I like quite a bit. So it's worth reading. It's 10 or 12 bands are highlighted. Then at the end, there's interviews with another maybe 10 or 15 bands that I guess didn't warrant a chapter. And there were several in there that I'd never heard of. And so I'll go through and look through that, at my leisure, but definitely well worth a read. Sometimes these books are a little much, but this guy seems to be well grounded in the music industry, and I thought he did a really nice job.
So when you say interviews, you mean like transcripts of interviews with individuals?
Yep.
And what's the guy's name? What's the author's name?
Dan Ozzi, Ozzi.
Because I'm thinking, based on your review, we might want to throw that up on As Mentioned, even though he's not a guest. Cool. But it sounds like something that's worth checking out. And if we can, remember, we'll put a link up on As Mentioned in case you're interested in the book. So my post facto, I have two things I wanted to point out. One of them is, as we were discussing our greatest of all time draft and then going into the Loft of Wisdom, I thought technically Muhammad Ali might have the lead for quotes on the Loft because I quoted him and you quoted someone who was quoting him. But I actually, when I went back and looked, as we've been talking here, I believe our current leader is Prince,
Oh,
which I'm
nice.
not sure anyone would have predicted. But you presented a quote from him, I think, in the comic book issue, a lyric of his, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. And then when we did the issue on music documentaries, my quote for the Loft of Wisdom was Prince. So what I'm going to say is Prince and Muhammad Ali are currently tied for the lead, and we will come back and report at various times during post facto as to who's getting the most quotes up on the Loft, if
And
anybody gives a shit.
they probably don't, but
They probably don't.
Prince also led the remake playlist that Tom and I did.
Yeah, that's right.
He had the original song, and we had the most remakes of Prince songs on that playlist.
Yeah, that's right. I completely forgot about that. My other post facto is just a nod, a tip of the hat to you. I listened to the Quiet Holler song you recommended as a staff pick, I think last episode. The band is Quiet Hollers, and the song was Death Breath,
Yep.
which didn't sound like a song I would be interested in, but I really liked the band's song Mont Blanc, which you recommended,
Yep.
a year ago minimum. I go back and listen to Mont Blanc all the time. I just think it's a really cool song. And I listened to it after the episode, after we recorded, and I like this one as well. You described them as an enigmatic band, and I
Mhm.
think that's absolutely, it hits it on the head. They have a weird personality. I don't know exactly how to describe it. I was trying to figure out what to say about this in post facto, and they have this kind of omniscient narrator feel, like they're
Mm.
looking down on something and describing it while they're playing the music. This particular song you mentioned, and I agree, is definitely got kind of a Mexican, almost mariachi
Right.
pop Mexican feel to it. That band grows on me all the time, and I really like that song Death Breath a ton. So I join you in recommending Quiet Hollers to people. It's a band I don't think a lot of people know about, or at least a lot of our listeners don't know about, and it's really worth listening to.
Yeah, and when they hit it really well.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that song's awesome. Mont Blanc is fantastic. There are other songs, but I think I don't know, there's just, you're not going to hit it with every single song. I like
right.
listening to them. He's got a very interesting voice. As you said, a very interesting approach. Keep an eye on them. I'm hoping that they're about to put out a new album because that tends to be what it is. They release a single or two and then a new
Right.
album comes out. So
Yeah, no, I'm very much looking forward to that. Next up is staff picks.
Just around the corner from you.
staff picks is where Tom and I recommend either new stuff or stuff that's new to us. Every once in a while, we'll have discovered something even from several decades ago that we'd never heard of. I did that with this most recent book that I read. But in general, we're recommending either new TV shows, new movies, or new music. What's your staff pick for this week, Tom?
My staff pick is kind of both of those things. It is a TV show on Apple TV Plus that actually has been out for a while, but also just dropped season 3. So it was recommended as a staff pick, I think, by Dante Di Bartolo when we talked to him. He talked about the show Foundation, which is based upon a series of novels by Isaac Asimov that I read and did not understand when I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14. He recommended the show. And at the time he recommended it, I think season 3 was just getting ready to drop, or maybe had dropped a single episode on Apple TV Plus. So I went back and decided to start at season 1, episode 1. And as I was watching it, I realized that I watched the first handful of those episodes and then just lost the thread for some reason. So I basically, over a period of about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I binge watched seasons 1 and 2, and then started watching season 3. And I'm now caught up. I think they're about halfway through season 3. And I really recommend it. If you like science fiction, if you like kind of hard sci-fi, it's not a time travel show, but it spans centuries. And they have this very interesting way of allowing certain characters to stay in the picture, be primary to the story, even though these hundreds of years have passed. There's a lot of there's an empire that exists that has a ruler has been cloned, and they've been ruling for thousands, I think tens of thousands of years, because they keep cloning these rulers and they just rotate through them. It is there's good romance, there's good action, and there's really good hard sci-fi. So I in this case want to give Dante DiBartolo credit for making the original staff pick, and this is our first double staff pick. It's been a couple weeks since he's been on, but season 3 is almost over. By the time you hear this episode, it will probably be out in total, or there may be one episode left. This is supposed to drop on September 22nd, and I'm thinking that all 10 episodes will be out by the time you hear this.
Very cool. I have to check it out. I love a good sci-fi TV show.
I think you would like this one. I know what your sci-fi reading habits are, like who you like, and it has that kind of big epic feel to it because it spans so many centuries and it's all over the galaxy. And I have a feeling you would really like that show.
All right. Shockingly, I went with music. It's a name I've brought up before. It's Katie Pruitt. There's a song she did with Rustin Kelly. Ooh, almost forgot his name. Called Stand Still, which I really, really like. This one is called Risk. It's a new single that she just put out. She's a great songwriter, and this is a love song. And in the end, it's about taking a risk for the chance to fall in love. These are somewhat cliched lines. You won't hit the bullseye if you never throw the dart. If you go outside, you might get bitten by a snake, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. That's not the one I'm quoting. The line that sticks with me that I think is pretty cool is she's describing how her and her love interest are sitting in the corner kissing. And the line is trading compliments like medicine to fix our broken hearts. I just thought that's a pretty, I don't think I've ever heard compliments and medicine compared in that way.
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool little line. So
That's like a loft of wisdom line, man. I think we might have an episode coming up where that might fit. You might want to file that away. Or maybe I'll file it away. That would piss you off, wouldn't it? That does take us to our playlist picks. Every episode, we each pick a song for our running season 9 playlist. We've done the same for seasons 1 through 8. You can find all of those playlists on Spotify, on Apple Music, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music. Please listen to all those playlists. But we are currently building our season 9 playlist. And Chris, you are up first.
I am. I'm going to pull a Tom and mention a song that I almost picked. And it's another reference essentially to Ali, but one of his biggest, I won't say protagonist. What's the word I'm looking for? Biggest rivals, Joe Frazier. I recommended this song as a staff pick a while back. So this is sort of a reminder to folks to check it out. The band is the D-Lines. Former lead singer of Richmond Fontaine formed a band where he doesn't sing at all. I forget her name, but a great female lead singer. And the first single they released off their latest album was called Left Hook Like Frazier, which is a great title. Frazier's one of the greatest punchers ever. So I almost chose it, but since I've already recommended it in some form, I wanted to pick something else. And I want to keep up with my theme of upbeat music so far for this playlist because I tend to sink into sad, depressing shit. So you can say something. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love the title that title, Left Hook Like Frazier. I just saw what you've got on the outline. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's not the same.
No, not even close. You could argue that Mariano Rivera was the greatest closer in baseball history. He played for the Yankees. He may have played for somebody else. I don't know. Hate the Yankees, but he was also associated with the song Enter Sandman. So whenever he came into a game, they would blare this song in Yankee Stadium. And if you don't know, it's from Metallica. I know Joe Pay will know that. And there's certainly a lot of walk up and walk in types of songs, but this is probably the most associated one that I can think of. And we are talking about the GOAT. Mariano Rivera qualifies as one of the best ever. And this is a kick-ass song. So
Yeah.
Enter Sandman by Metallica.
Yeah, it is a kick-ass song. I'm not a giant Metallica fan, of course, but
Right.
that song is pretty awesome. I wonder, I have this question for you. Are you capable of saying New York Yankees without following it with I hate the Yankees? Because I'm not sure I've ever heard you mention the team without just blurting out I hate the Yankees.
It's possible. I'll try it some later
You have to
time.
try sometime. All right, my playlist pick is really just barely connected to the theme of our episode. I couldn't really come up with something that had to do with the GOAT or greatest of all time. I was trying to figure out lyrics. I'm sure they're out there, but my relatively weak research didn't come up with anything. I did find a song by Mark Germino, who I know is a favorite of yours, from his album Midnight Carnival, which came out 2021, and that song is called "The Greatest Song Ever Written." By the way, not the only song in my library titled "The Greatest Song Ever Written," because Jack Black and what's the name of their band? Shit, I can't think of it now. Anyway, they have that song, which is really just kind of a comedy song. But "The Greatest Song Ever Written" by Mark Jimino, really good, really a fun song. I'd kind of forgotten about it, and when I was searching around through my library, that seemed like a good one. And I do think it will help bring down the energy a little bit after Enter Sandman. So I think it's probably well placed after the Metallica song.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a great choice. Fortunately, Germino passed away a couple years ago. Fantastic, underappreciated songwriter. And that's a clever one. I think it's really funny that
Yeah.
I think we may have talked about it before, but when we talked about him, it's saying he always wanted to write the greatest song ever written. So he titled the song "The Greatest Song
Right.
Ever Written,"
Right.
which is the best.
It's a lot of fun. I like that song. I
Yeah.
kind of not thought about it in quite a while. So
Yeah. Third Song In is recorded in Joliet, Illinois, and Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
we have an email address, thirdsongin@gmail.com. Please email us with any questions, comments, suggestions for future episodes, or guests.
And check out our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. All the quotes that make it onto the Loft of Wisdom have a page to themselves. We have all of our staff picks there. A lot of stuff on our site constantly being added to.
Please follow us wherever you listen to your podcast. Rate and review our episodes and the podcast in general. Give us all your stars, please. I'm begging you. Just as many stars as you can spare. If you can spare a star, give us a star.
If you search for Third Song In, you should be able to find all of our season playlists. We have one for seasons 1 and starting on season 9 right now. And everything in between. We also have special playlists we put out whenever we have a guest on. You can also look for Third Song In and should be able to find them. Share them with friends or enemies. If you could follow us, rate us, or review, it would really be appreciated.
We also have a bit of a social media presence. We got a Facebook page, Instagram. We're on Blue Sky. Please follow us on those platforms. We try to post other stuff that you won't necessarily see on the website. So you may get links to some of our guests' work or shows, some photographs, every once in a while, a funny little video. So follow us there as well.
We also have our blogs. Tom and I each take turns writing a blog for the website. We also share them on Substack. You can subscribe and get those in your inbox every Thursday when they're released.
You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening.
You know what? We should be popular just because of that stupid fucking thing you do about stars. That
Yeah,
makes me laugh every time.
I saw you were legitimately, authentically laughing when I said that. I'm like, dude, I've said that like 1,000 times now.
You've said it almost 100 times. It's getting close. And
Yeah, it is getting close.
It still makes me laugh every time. And if it makes me laugh, it should make other motherfuckers laugh.
Yes.
Come on, people.
It's the motherfuckers. Those are the ones we can't get. Third Song In is recorded. Oh, fuck.
I am the GOAT. I am the GOAT at cutting you off when you're starting to talk.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. I just looked at your image again. That's the most ridiculous background I've ever seen you use.
I like it.
Yeah, you look like a wedding photographer getting ready for a shoot.
Fuck you.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Feel like a
Nice
morning
memory.
show host. Also, it's 77 degrees out, and if you're headed into the city, watch out for the Stevens.